Notable for being the first named train in British history, the Irish Mail came into existence in 1848 and would work for 154 years as the backbone of express passenger connections between the capitals of London and Dublin, offering unparalleled service and comfort for many years before an increasingly corporatised rail network led it to being reduced to simply another train on the system. The route between London and Holyhead originated in the early establishment of an official postal service linking London and Dublin via the port of Holyhead, creating a crucial artery for communication between Britain and Ireland long before the age of the railway, with this service initially being concerned solely with the swift and secure delivery of mail, but as demand for travel increased, passenger transport naturally followed. By the early part of the 19th century, the growing importance of Irish trade and migration prompted the gradual adaptation of these services to carry people as well as post, and by 1819, a regular and organised mail coach service had been firmly established along this route, departing London each evening at 8 p.m, while the arrival time was entirely dependent on the condition of the roads, the reliability of the horses, and the variable British weather. Passengers endured the discomfort of bumpy roads, crowded compartments, and the constant need to change horses at coaching inns along the way, while upon reaching Holyhead, travellers and mail bags were transferred to packet boats for the crossing to Dublin, and if the sea was calm and the winds favourable, they could hope to reach the Irish capital by the evening of the second day. The delays caused by storms and rough seas were not uncommon. The next great advance came with the expansion of the railway network, with the construction of the Chester to Holyhead Railway marking a significant transformation in travel between Britain and Ireland, as engineers pushed the railway further west through the challenging landscape of North Wales, and in so doing overcoming formidable natural obstacles, including mountainous terrain and coastal cliffs. The project culminated in 1848 with the completion of the line to Holyhead, an engineering triumph that made possible, for the first time, a seamless integration of rail and sea transport, and with this innovation, passengers and mail could travel swiftly from London to the Irish Sea, and then continue their journey to Dublin with unprecedented speed and convenience. In order to signify the importance of the railway in providing a new and vastly superior service than the former horse and coaches, Britain's first named train would appear on the warm summer evening of August 1, 1848, when at precisely 8:45 p.m, the first service of the Irish Mail, composed of a series of gaslit wooden carriages and a powerful steam locomotive, pulled away from London Euston. The scheduled arrival time at Holyhead was 6:45 a.m. the following morning, allowing a little under 10 hours for the journey across the length of England and Wales, while once at Holyhead, passengers and mail were transferred directly to steamers which awaited in the harbour to carry them across the often unpredictable Irish Sea to Dublin. However, while the first run of the Irish Mail was a significant feat in providing Anglo-Irish connections, one major piece of engineering work remained unfinished, with the Britannia Tubular Bridge, conceived and designed by the eminent engineer Robert Stephenson, still being under construction, with its purpose being to carry the railway across the Menai Straits, linking the mainland of Wales with the island of Anglesey. In the absence of this vital structure, the inaugural Irish Mail train was unable to cross beyond Bangor, and thus both passengers and mail were obliged to disembark and continue their journey across to Anglesey by road, with horse-drawn carriages transporting them along the narrow winding lanes to Llangffaith with Gwynwyth, where the line resumed and carried them onwards to Holyhead, a situation that would continue until the bridge's completion in 1850. By that year, the City of Dublin Steam Packet Company assumed control of the steamship portion of the Irish Mail journey, operating the vital sea crossing between Holyhead and Dublin, with this company, already well established in maritime transport, bringing its expertise to bear on the increasingly busy route, ensuring that the transfer of mail and passengers across the Irish Sea was handled with a degree of reliability and regularity. In due course, the London and North Western Railway, which had already established itself as one of the great railway enterprises of the era, took full responsibility for the integrated service, with this consolidation of rail and sea operations allowing for greater efficiency and consistency, as one company now oversaw the entire journey from London to Dublin. The merging of these two modes of transport into a seamless connection significantly reduced journey times, and by 1885, the entire journey on the London to Dublin night mail service, including both rail and sea portions, could be completed in just 10 hours and 20 minutes, a remarkable achievement for the time, and a testament to the growing sophistication of Victorian-era transport infrastructure. One of the most distinctive features of the Irish Mail from its inception was its strict observance of Greenwich Mean Time, a system introduced to maintain uniformity across the expanding railway network, with each morning seeing a representative from the Royal Observatory at Greenwich, deliver a precisely regulated chronometer to Euston Station. This watch, enclosed in a silver pear-cased pocket design typical of mid-19th century horology, was entrusted to the train's guard, and throughout the journey, this timepiece ensured that every station clock and schedule remained perfectly synchronized, while upon reaching Holyhead, the watch was transferred to the captain of the steamer bound for Dublin, extending this chain of exactitude across the Irish Sea, with the same process being repeated in reverse on the return journey. As the second half of the 19th century progressed, the Irish mail steadily built a reputation as one of the most dependable and fastest means of travelling between England and Ireland, with the London and North Western Railway operating the service with meticulous punctuality, ensuring that connections between the railway at Holyhead and the packet steamers to Dublin were as smooth as possible. During this period, no fewer than 3 steamer services were maintained between Holyhead and Ireland, with the City of Dublin Steam Packet Company continuing to operate the primary route to Kingstown, a harbour located just south of Dublin, while the London and North Western Railway managed its own shipping service up the River Liffey to North Wall in Dublin, while a third steamer service ran between Holyhead and Greenore, serving passengers and freight destined for the northern parts of Ireland. Despite the general efficiency of the Irish mail, the service was not without its moments of tragedy, as on August 20th, 1868, the Irish mail suffered a catastrophic accident near Abergele in North Wales, when runaway freight wagons, which had been improperly secured, rolled onto the main line and into the path of the oncoming train, with these wagons containing highly flammable materials, and thus the ensuing collision sparked a fierce fire that engulfed the carriages. This disaster claimed the lives of 33 individuals, marking one of the deadliest railway accidents in British history at the time, while only 2 years later, on September 14, 1870, the Irish mail was involved in another serious incident when a signalling error led to the train being inadvertently diverted into a siding at Tamworth, where it crashed into the River Anker, resulting in the deaths of 3 people. In spite of these sobering incidents, the Irish mail retained its reputation as a premier express service, with locomotives assigned to the Irish mail being among the most powerful and advanced of their day, with early examples of the Claughton class 460 demonstrating both strength and resilience, capable of hauling heavy trains at sustained speeds. One particularly memorable feat involved locomotive number 2222 Sir Gilbert Claughton, which under the experienced hand of driver John Ford managed to pull a 310-ton train from a standstill at Oxenholme to the summit of Shap, climbing nearly 1,000 feet in a little over 23 minutes, with such performance reflecting the tremendous skill of the crews and the technical capabilities of the engines themselves. Going into the 20th century, the Irish mail maintained its standing as one of the most prestigious, swiftest and strategically important express services operated by the London and North Western Railway, being long admired for its speed and efficiency, and earning the unofficial name of the Wild Irishman, in recognition of its exhilarating pace across the length of Britain. By this point, the Irish mail provided both daytime and overnight services, with scheduled departures from London Euston at 8:30 in the morning and 8:45 in the evening, while in the reverse direction, corresponding arrivals into London occurred at 5:50 a.m. for the night train and 5:50 p.m. for the day service, forming a dependable and regular timetable that served the travelling public and postal authorities alike. However, with the outbreak of World War I, the Greenore service was discontinued early in the conflict and never resumed after peace was restored, while the City of Dublin Steam Packet Company, facing financial strain following the loss of its mail contract, ceased trading and thus left the LNWR in a dominant position. Following the railway grouping of 1923, the LNWR was incorporated into the newly formed London, Midland and Scottish Railway, which subsequently rationalised sea services, concentrating operations on Dun Laoghaire, while the LMS also introduced new modern steamers with expanded passenger capacity to better meet the demands of cross-channel traffic. In the interwar years, the Irish mail continued to operate with consistent regularity and popularity, providing both daytime and overnight services throughout the year, with the night mail proving particularly popular with travellers, often comprising an impressive formation of as many as 17 bogie coaches, including sleeping cars that allowed passengers to make the journey in relative comfort. During periods of lighter seasonal demand, additional coaches destined for Manchester and Liverpool were attached to the train for part of the journey, while during peak tourist seasons, these connecting trains were often run separately from Euston to accommodate the increased traffic. While the LMS preserved the Irish mail's well-established operational traditions, it also introduced a number of technical improvements to maintain and enhance the service's punctuality and speed, among these being the continued use of John Ramsbottom's track trough system, first introduced in 1859, which allowed express locomotives to collect water while running at full speed, thereby avoiding the need for time-consuming stops. However, the outbreak of World War II in 1939 brought inevitable disruption to the Irish Mail again, and the service was reduced to a single daily train in each direction, though despite these restrictions, the Irish Mail retained its vital role in connecting Great Britain with Ireland, carrying not only passengers and mail, but also playing an essential part in the movement of troops, military equipment, and essential wartime supplies across the Irish Sea. Following the end of the war in 1945, and the nationalisation into British Railways 3 years later, the Irish Mail retained its position as one of the most distinguished and celebrated named trains in Great Britain, though its unique use of timing as provided by the Royal Observatory had ended in 1939 with the outbreak of the conflict. Sadly, in the early hours of August 27, 1950, the service was involved in another catastrophic accident that would become one of the most serious in its history, as on that day the Irish Mail had departed from Holyhead at 2:15 a.m., running approximately 30 minutes behind schedule due to the late arrival of the connecting ferry from Dublin. As the train made its way across the North Wales coast, it approached Penmaenmawr station at around 3 a.m., at which point the train, hauled by LMS rebuilt Royal Scot No. 46119 Lancashire Fusilier, was travelling at an estimated speed of between 60 and 70 miles an hour. Inexplicably, just moments before reaching the station, the signal ahead unexpectedly changed from clear to danger, and the train's driver, William Williams, responded instantly by shutting off the regulator and applying the emergency brakes in an attempt to bring the train to a halt. But despite his swift actions, there was insufficient distance remaining to stop the express in time. Tragically, the Irish Mail collided with a stationary LMS Hughes Crab locomotive, number 42885, which was waiting at the station for instructions to proceed, with the two heavy locomotives smashing into one another at approximately 50 miles an hour, with this impact being so severe that the Crab was pushed around 240 yards down the line, though it managed to remain largely intact with only its rear wheels derailed. The accident resulted in the deaths of 4 passengers and a railway employee at the scene, while a 5th passenger later died from injuries sustained in the crash, and additionally, 31 passengers and 4 members of railway staff, including both drivers and firemen involved, suffered injuries of varying severity, with an official inquiry concluding that human error on the part of the signalman was to blame, who had mistakenly believed that the Crab had already been safely shunted into a siding, leaving the main line clear for the Irish Mail to proceed. As the 1960s unfolded, the British railway system underwent significant modernisation, including the electrification of the West Coast Main Line, and though the train continued to operate as a flagship service between London and Holyhead, the electrification necessitated operational adjustments, including a locomotive change at Crewe, where the electric locomotives were exchanged for diesel engines to continue the journey westward. Steam was subsequently replaced by a mixture of Class 86 locomotives on the run from London to Crewe, and then a Class 47 for the onward journey to Holyhead, while from September 1991, the Class 43 HST sets were formally introduced to operate both regular non-electrified services from London to Chester, Wrexham, Blackpool North and Holyhead, as well as the Irish Mail diagrams. Officially, 5 Class 43s were allocated to work the West Coast service from London to North Wales, including 43006, 007, 008, 178 and 184, though these power cars were interchangeable with those allocated to the cross-country pool, and thus various different power cars could be found at work on the North Wales line, while for many years and for no discernible reason, the first train of the day from London to North Wales terminated at Bangor, with onward passengers to Holyhead being transferred to a Class 150 Sprinter. In 1998, the Irish Mail, now operated by Virgin Trains West Coast, reached its 150th anniversary, and thus to commemorate the moment, on July 31st of that year, a special ceremony was undertaken that paid tribute to the traditions of the past, with a silver pear-case pocket chronometer, provided by the renowned firm of Charles Frodsham & Co. Limited of London, being carried from Euston Station to Holyhead, while during that same year, Virgin Trains further honoured the Irish Mail's legacy by renaming Class 43 power car 43101 as the Irish Mail 1848-1998. Sadly, the story of the Irish Mail was facing its close, as in tandem with its broader commercial strategy, Virgin Trains adopted a policy of retiring the use of traditional named trains, including the likes of the Cornish Scot and the Manchester Pullman, while the Irish Mail itself, from its prestigious offerings throughout much of the 19th and 20th centuries, was now generally comparable to the regular provision of HSTs running between London and Holyhead, with nothing particularly special to differentiate it. Therefore, in June 2002, the Irish Mail name was dropped with that year's summer timetable change, unceremoniously rounding out its 154 years of operation, while the HSTs that had been its last standard bearers would soon follow, as on May 22, 2004, Virgin trains were ordered by the Strategic Rail Authority to return them to the leasing company, as 5-car Class 221 Super Voyagers moved in to replace them. Subsequently, the service from London to Holyhead would simply be another run on the Virgin train system, operated interchangeably by either single or paired Class 221s, or by a Class 57 hauling electric Class 390 Pendolino sets from Crewe to Holyhead and back, while today, the Holyhead run is powered by Avanti West Coast Class 805s, which replaced the Class 221s in December 2024. Ultimately, the Irish Mail, while not the most luxurious or distinctive of Britain's named trains, remains notable for its pioneering role as Britain's first, and by far one of the oldest at the time of its withdrawal, this title being synonymous with the still vitally important connection between Britain and Ireland, and remains a staple of the golden age of yesteryear's train travel.